October 1987, Newark, New Jersey. Patterson's music on Springfield Avenue. A Saturday morning, 10:22 a.m. A 13-year-old girl walks in alone. She goes to the display keyboard in the back corner, the Casio CT61. Oh, that Mr. Patterson keeps plugged in to draw people off the street. She sits down on the small stool. She places her hands on the keys. She begins to play, and then she begins to sing. The girl's name is Simone Carter. She is 13 years old, small and thin, wearing a green jacket 2 sizes too big and sneakers that have been resoled once. She lives with her mother, Diane, in a 2-bedroom apartment on Nye Avenue, 7 blocks from the store. Her mother works double shifts at University Hospital on weekday nights and sleeps Saturday mornings. Her father moved to Baltimore when Simone was 4. Simone has been coming to Patterson's music on Saturday mornings for 5 months. Not to buy anything. She has no money for instruments. She comes because Patterson's tolerates serious-looking people trying before they buy. Mr. Patterson has allowed her to sit at the demo keyboard on slow mornings without saying much about it. Most Saturdays, Simone arrives around 10, sits at the Casio, plays for 20 or 30 minutes, and leaves. She never asks for anything else. She never touches the other instruments. She never moves the stool from its spot beside the display stand. What Simone does at that keyboard is not what most 13-year-olds do with a demo instrument in a music store. She didn't take lessons. She learned from church, watching the organ every Sunday until chord shapes made sense in her fingers. She learned from her mother's kitchen radio. She learned from the 20 or 30 minutes every Saturday at Patterson's. The only time each week she had access to an instrument that was actually plugged in. She came with specific things to work on. She had been working on the bridge of a gospel song for 3 weeks. Not just the notes, the phrasing. This particular Saturday, she is close. She can feel it. She is playing when Mr. Patterson comes from behind the counter. This Saturday is not slow. A man with his teenage son is at the drum kit in the back. A school music teacher has been talking to the store assistant about a class order for 30 minutes, which means Mr. Patterson has been handling the floor himself. The sound of a 13-year-old playing a demo keyboard she is not going to buy is, this morning, a different calculation than it is on a quiet weekday. Simone? Mr. Patterson stops beside her. He doesn't say it unkindly. He says it the way a man says something he has said before and doesn't enjoy saying. You know how Saturdays are. I need the floor clear for real customers. Simone stops playing. She looks at her hands on the keys for a moment. Then she takes her hands off. She stands up from the stool. She adjusts it back to exactly where it was. She picks up her backpack from the floor. She walks toward the front door. What no one in the store knows yet is that the woman in the sheet music aisle has been listening for most of the past 4 minutes. She is not going to let the door close. Whitney Houston had not planned to stop at Patterson's music that Saturday morning. She was in Newark visiting her mother, Sissy, who still lived in the house on Dodge Street where Whitney had grown up. She had driven over in a rental car with no particular destination, just needing an hour alone before the afternoon, before the calls and the people who needed things from her all resumed at once. It had been 2.5 years inside the machine. The albums, the tours, the award shows, men in suits deciding what she would sing and what version would sell most efficiently. She had turned 24 in August, famous since she was 21. She parked on Springfield Avenue because she remembered a record store from high school, a place she used to walk to on Saturday afternoons when she had $3 and nothing else to do. It was gone. Patterson's music was next door. She went in because the bell above the door sounded like something she remembered. The smell of rosin and new strings was familiar. She went to the sheet music section because nobody there was going to look at her the way people looked at her everywhere else. She was reading through a collection of jazz standards when the girl at the keyboard in the back corner started to sing. Whitney did not move. It was not the technique. The technique was unformed. A 13-year-old voice, untrained, not knowing how to manage the weight it was carrying. But underneath that, something else was happening. The phrases were going somewhere. There was a decision behind every note. The decision of someone trying to say something that couldn't be said any other way. The bridge had a logic to it, an argument made and answered and made again differently, a question trying to answer itself. What it actually felt like in a music store on a Saturday morning was much simpler than any technical language. It felt like recognition. She was still holding the jazz standards book when she heard Mr. Patterson say the girl's name. She put it back. She came to the end of the aisle to see a girl in a green jacket too big for her body, set the stool back to its exact position, pick up her backpack, and walk toward the door. The girl's face as she passed was not angry. It was not ashamed. It was the face of someone who has practiced not showing what they feel, which is a different thing and harder to look at. Whitney stepped out of the aisle. "Hey," she said. The girl stopped. She turned around. She looked at the woman who had just come from the sheet music section. She didn't recognize her at first. Then she did. Her face did something that was not quite any single expression. "How long have you been playing?" Whitney said. The girl looked at her for a moment. "About a year," she said. "On my own." On my own. Whitney heard everything inside those three words. "You wrote what you were just playing?" Simone hesitated. "Not exactly. I'm trying to figure out how to play something I heard at church. I've been working on the middle part for a few weeks." "The bridge." "Yeah." "You were close," Whitney said. Simone looked at her. "You could tell?" "I could tell." Behind the counter, Mr. Patterson had gone very still. He had recognized her about 40 seconds ago and was now doing the calculation of a man who had just asked someone's spiritual future to leave his store. Whitney walked back to the display keyboard. She looked at it. Then she looked at Simone. "Sit down," she said. "Play me the part you can't get right." Simone sat down. She put her hands on the keys. She played the bridge from the beginning, and halfway through it, she stopped. "There," she said. "Right there. It's supposed to go somewhere, and I can't hear where." Whitney stood beside her and looked at the keys. She didn't reach for them yet. "What does it sound like in your head?" she said. "The part you're trying to get to." Simone thought about it. "Like a question that answers itself, like something that's worried and then decides not to be." Whitney was quiet for a second. Then she reached out and played 4 notes. Low, simple, unhurried. 4 notes. Simone stared at the keys. "Try it from there," Whitney said. Simone played it. She played through the bridge from the top, and this time she didn't stop. Her hands found the thing they had been searching for 3 weeks, and she played it through to the end, and the resolution landed where it was supposed to land. When she finished, the store had gone quiet. The man with his teenage son at the drum kit had stopped talking. The school music teacher had turned away from the counter. Mr. Patterson had not moved. Simone sat with her hands in her lap and looked at the keys for a long moment. "You had it," Whitney said. "The whole time you had it. You just needed to hear the bottom note first." Simone looked up. Her mouth opened and nothing came out for a moment. Whitney walked to the counter. She looked at the keyboard on the display stand, a Casio MT520, the entry-level home model, $89 on the price tag, the kind that didn't need anything except an outlet and someone who knew what to do with 81 keys. She looked at Mr. Patterson. He was already reaching for the box on the shelf behind him without being asked. She put her card on the counter. "Box it up," she said quietly, "and a sustain pedal if you have one." Mr. Patterson boxed it without a word. He put the sustain pedal in. He added a beginner's theory workbook without being asked for it either. Whitney carried the box across the store to where Simone was still sitting on the stool. She set it on the floor beside her. "This is yours now," she said. Simone looked at the box. She looked at Whitney. Her expression was the expression of someone who has not yet decided whether to trust what is happening. "You don't have to," she started. "I know," Whitney said. She picked up her keys from the counter. She walked toward the door. She stopped once with her hand on the frame and looked back at Mr. Patterson. "She plays better than your demo deserves," she said. Then she walked out. Simone Carter carried the Casio MT520 home to the apartment on Nye Avenue in both arms. 7 blocks, her backpack on her back and the box pressed against her chest and the sustain pedal tucked under one arm. Her mother was still asleep when she got there. She set the keyboard on the kitchen table, plugged it in, sat down on a kitchen chair. She played for 2 hours without stopping. The first time in her life she had played on her own instrument. The first time the sound coming out even partially matched the sound she had been hearing in her head for a year. Her mother woke up at noon and stood in the kitchen doorway in her hospital scrubs and listened without saying anything. Later, she told Simone it didn't sound like a 13-year-old playing an $89 keyboard on a kitchen table. Simone didn't believe her. It seemed like the kind of thing a mother says. She was wrong. Diane had heard something very specific. Simone found a teacher at 15, a woman named Bernadette Okafor, who taught theory and harmony in exchange for help with younger students. Simone absorbed it the way you absorb grammar rules for a language you already speak. Simone Carter did not become famous. She played in church bands for 2 decades. She recorded one album with a gospel quartet in 2001, called Quietly Extraordinary by one music blogger, and kept the review in a folder. She worked days in the Newark schools and played evenings and weekends for 20 years. She did not mind. In 2009, she began teaching music at a middle school 4 blocks from where Patterson's music used to stand. The store had closed in 2002. She charges nothing. She stays after school Tuesdays and Thursdays for whoever wants extra time. Kids find out the way you find out about things not advertised. She teaches every Saturday morning at the branch library on Springfield Avenue. Free. Open to any kid who shows up. She still has the Casio MT52. Oh, the power adapter has been replaced twice. One key sticks in damp weather. It sounds better to her now than it did in October 1987. She tells her students that the part they can't figure out is almost always the part they're closest to understanding. That what feels like a wall is usually a door they haven't found the angle on yet. She doesn't explain where she learned that. The lesson doesn't need the name attached to it. She just keeps teaching. Saturday mornings, Springfield Avenue, Newark. The important thing is that she didn't walk out the door.